Come to Portugal, they said. The weather's lovely, it's sunny, blue skies. Yeah, I think I brought the UK weather with me. Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to Portugal, and the most foul weather I have ever been presented on a first drive in my 9 years of doing YouTube. It is horrific weather today, but I'm here to drive the all-new Kia EV3, a car I first saw in a studio about 4 months ago, and I'm really excited to get to drive this car. It's like a baby version of the Kia EV9, an award-winning car from Kia, their Halo car. So I'm really excited. Unfortunately, the weather is absolutely shocking, so I'm gonna have to be creative with the video. Well, you can't always have the weather on your side, but I have found a pretty stunning backdrop with the waves crashing on the rocks behind. In fact, if you go up the coast just that way, there's a beach with some incredible surf and people out surfing. But there's a very big black cloud that way and some horrible stuff that way, and well, it's not so good that way either. So let's, while we can, quickly look around the outside of the car, and then we'll jump inside and stay dry and go for a drive for the rest of the review. When I first saw Kia EV9, which is their big flagship 7-seater, I love the styling. It's very out there, very reminiscent for me of Judge Dredd, that kind of, I don't know, apocalyptic end of the world design. The actual design language from Kia is called Opposites United. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that one, but if you want to know more about the EV3, the details anyway, the studio shoot I did, I'll put the link in the top left-hand corner of the screen and also in the video description. Head on over to see that, because again, I'm going to try and not overlap too much on that one. But the EV9 is a big, expensive car for Kia. It's still incredible value for money in the market. But the EV3 is really intending to bring a lot of that tech, trickling it down into a more mass market, family-oriented car. This is very much a family car. The outside styling, there's lots of cues from EV9. I really like it, and I know from the studio shoot I did with this that there are a lot of you aren't fans at all. In fact, the car I shot in the studio was this colour, a venturing green, but I think in the UK we're going to call it pistachio. So what we've basically got is an EV that is aimed at being the family's only car. Because up until now, I think, and arguably for many people, the thought of only owning an EV is a bit of a scary one. They always have like a backup car just in case, you know, when the range is low or you haven't charged it up or you need to suddenly drive to Inverness from Southampton and you're not wanting to do it in an electric car. This, though, has class-leading range, over 600 kilometers on a full charge with the big battery pack. We'll talk more about spec and so on a bit later. But from the outside, I think it's edgy, it's quirky, it's modern, and I really like it. Let's have a quick look at the back end, and then we'll jump inside and we'll talk about practicality, but also internal tech is pretty cool as well. When you see cars like this in a static environment in a studio, it's very difficult to get a true sense of the dynamics of the car. The really cool thing about being on the press event I'm on is there's lots and lots of these EV3s driving around, and I've followed them on the road and I've had them follow me on the road. And as soon as you start seeing them move, they just change in character, and you start to see things you didn't spot in a static environment, one of which being the light signatures. Both front and rear is a very distinctive light signature, and it just gives the car a really cool character. In terms of boot space, good sized boot, 480 litres in the rear. If you drop the seats, that increases to 1250 litres, and you have got a false floor. You can raise or lower that, so if you wanted underfloor storage, you can, or if you wanted more capacity for bigger things, you just drop the floor down to its lowest level. And then there's a 25-litre frunk or fruit at the front, which is really your main place to store your charge cables. It's not a massive amount of capacity, but at least it exists. So practicality-wise, rear styling-wise, I'm absolutely loving EV3. Anybody spotted the slight continuity error? It's sunny today. I missed this bit yesterday. Messed up with my camera. Oh. Rescue myself from the elements out there. First up, the mobile phone wireless charge mat is just there. It's rubberized and it's got little guide bars so your phone's nice and secure. But then driving position, clearly sat in the car when it was in a studio. But I have driven this car quite a bit before I turned the cameras on, and driving position is really very good. And the really interesting thing for me, I'm currently running a Kia Niro plug-in hybrid as my Hendy Group long-termer. And it's a brand new car. But you get in this, and actually it's quite similar if you get in the facelift EV6, and Kia have really lifted their interior game. The steering wheel is so much nicer than my Niro, and then you've just got a completely different layout, really. You've got cool things like this little table just here. One of the interesting things that we were talked about in the briefing is clearly it's an EV, so you're going to have to charge up, but you can get a huge chunk of range in this car in just 30 minutes. And the idea is while you're doing that, you could maybe have a little picnic on there. On the infotainment system, they've got some downloadable apps. You can watch movies on Netflix and Apple TV and all that kind of stuff. But I quite like that, that little table. Let me just fire the car up, bring the screens to life. You've actually got 3 screens. You've got the two 12.5-inch monitors here. This one here is your kind of traditional instruments. You've then got a smaller, I think it's a 5-inch screen there, which is your display for your climate control. Now you can use touchscreen on that, or there are some proper buttons just here, which is really nice. And then you've got the main infotainment screen just there, which I've only used the navigation and so on, but it seems to respond quite quickly. And then you've got some buttons here, some quick keys here to go straight to the map. Or to go to your media, and I like those. They're like little haptic buttons. Just turn that off. So that's really nice. Little things. I'm not a big fan of the gear selector. It's like this big thing sticking out of the steering column. And I understand why it's there. You kind of twist it to put it into the various gears. That's also where your start-stop button is. It cleans this area up completely. The bins are all down here. You've got 2 drinks or water bottle areas and a nice great big area just there. So there's plenty of storage space. The door bins are okay size. You've certainly got room for big bottles of water in there. And then these seats, I think they look great and they're quite comfortable. Let me just quickly, I've got the spec. This is a GT line. So there's going to be 3 trim levels, Air, GT Line and GT Line S. I'll tell you maybe more about those when we're out and about. Headline figures for this car are all front-wheel drive with 204 horsepower, 150 kilowatts if you want to have it in the electric speak, 283 Newton meters. The performance is never going to set the world on fire, 7.9 seconds, but this car isn't really about that. It's got an 81.4 kilowatt hour battery. They do a smaller battery size than that, but that's the one you want for me because the larger battery delivers mega range. So the combined range here, you're talking about just over 600 kilometres of combined range and a 10 to 80% charge time in 31 minutes. And that really makes the car a very usable proposition. And its gross weight, it weighs 2.3 tonnes, but that's fairly standard for EVs these days. And then the thing I really like is when you start looking at the equipment list, all the things that are on this car, it's really, really impressive. The thing I like about what Kia do is they don't really have that much spec to choose from. You've got different trim levels and then everything really comes included. The only thing you have to do is choose what trim level you're going to have and basically what colour you want it. So I I think the rain's going to come in, so I reckon we go for a drive and have a chat, because this video's much more about how it feels to drive, and those driving impressions. I've already done the kind of space. There's plenty of space in the back as well. I mean, I can fit in there. It's maybe a little bit tight if you've got the rear, the passenger or the driver's seat all the way back. It's going to be a little bit more cramped in the back, certainly compared to an EV9, but those things are absolutely giganormous. Anyway, the cameras are rolling. Let's go for a drive. I think technically that's what you call bloody good timing, because the weather's just come in. I'd literally just finished those external bits to camera, and the biggest, blackest rain cloud came in. Now, speed bong time. So now in Kia, you can just hold and press down the volume button for a few seconds, and that turns the speed limit warning off, which is most excellent. And lane departure assistance, you've got a little button on the steering wheel, hold and press that down, and that's off too. So all of these ADAS systems, they have to be there, although that's a big improvement over my Kia Niro, because in that I have to go into the main infotainment system, and there's like 4 presses before you can switch everything off. So while we kind of drive over into that big rain cloud, let's have a chat about the range options. I've mentioned we got Air, GT Line S, but range options, couple of little bits of information about those, and also UK pricing.
The EV3 lineup starts with the Air grade. This has 2 battery sizes, 58.3 and 81.4 kilowatt hours. Both battery packs feature front-wheel drive, single-motor powertrains, producing up to 201 bhp and a peak torque of 283 newton meters. The 58.3 kilowatt hour battery pack can do up to 270 miles on a single charge, while the long-range 81.4 kilowatt hour battery pack can do 375 miles WLTP combined cycle. Air models spec include 17-inch wheels, LED headlights and grey cloth upholstery, and this is priced from $32,995 on the road for the smaller battery and $35,995 with the long-range battery. As with almost all Kia models, you get lots of standard equipment, which means the only options you really need to choose is the paint. The EV3 Air model features a sunset orange as standard, with 4 optional premium colours: white pearl, midnight black, lithium silver and frost blue, available for an additional £625. Next up is the GT line I'm driving, which features the long-range 81.4 kilowatt-hour battery with a range of up to 367 miles WLTP combined cycle. With more aggressive GT line styling and an even longer list of standard equipment, including 19-inch alloys and 2-tone GT line upholstery, the EV3 GT line is priced from $39,495. The flagship of the EV3 lineup is the GT Line S, with a price tag of £42,995. Like the GT line, it features the 81.4 kilowatt-hour long-range battery pack and the WLTP combined cycle range of up to 362 miles. It has an extensive list of equipment, and all you need to choose is the paint. The big question for me, however, is where does this leave the Niro EV? It has a smaller battery, less range. I think its looks are dated now compared with EV3, and it's more expensive, ranging from $37,300 to $43,900. A really interesting challenge for Kia. Maybe we'll see the Niro EV disappear and they'll just focus on the hybrid, plug-in hybrid.
So we've got 3 levels of regen braking and I-pedal mode. You can adjust them using paddles on the back of the steering wheel, but if you pull the left-hand paddle for about 3 seconds, it goes into I-pedal, which is true one-pedal driving, and I have just lifted off my foot off the throttle. I'm not using the brake at all. It will bring the car to a complete stop. Just a little bit of braking there just because there's a pedestrian crossing, so you want to stop the car a little bit faster, but you can just pull away, bring the car to a stop, not using the brake there, stopped, check it's clear to enter the roundabout. And that, for this kind of town driving, makes this car really, really easy. And the interesting thing, although I haven't given it a go yet, is the one pedal driving mode works in reverse as well. So if you were manoeuvring, I don't know, in a car park or something. Now, interestingly, I have been in a car park, and in very slow speed manoeuvring, the one pedal driving thing just freaks me out a little bit, because it's so counterintuitive to what I'm used to after, you know, decades of driving. I'm not used to cars just stopping themselves when you lift off the brake pad, off the throttle rather. So you need to get used to that. But yeah, one pedal driving in these kind of conditions where there's heavy traffic, it's super easy. You don't need to use the brake at all, unless you need to stop just a bit quicker than the one pedal driving is programmed to do. So, drive mode time. Drive mode selector is just on the steering wheel here, and you've got Eco, Normal, Sport, My Drive and Snow. So we just start off in the Eco mode. The interesting thing, this is a press event that's running over a number of weeks. There's journalists flying in from all over the world, and I'm pretty sure each one of them is going to get in these cars and drive them fairly hard. So the range that's indicating on the moment at this car isn't anywhere near the kind of quoted 600 kilometers. It has a huge amount of work being done on the aerodynamics, even though it doesn't look particularly aerodynamic. It's got all the kind of side profile of a house brick, but it is very aerodynamic. It's got lots of work being done underneath. They've got active aero flaps on the front, and it's got like a teardrop shape. And aero is so important for EVs to give you that least amount of resistance as we're pushing through the air. But in eco mode, it kind of backs everything off, but it doesn't feel too sluggish and too horrible, actually. And unless I was absolutely desperate and trying to eke out the last mile, I probably wouldn't be driving it in eco mode at all. So I'm going to go up to the next one, and I'm going to drive it in normal mode. Now, there's no kind of active suspension on this, but there's been quite a lot of work done to really make sure that the suspension gives you the best ride possible. It's been tuned for European roads. I did have a laugh this morning when they said that. I nearly said, why can't you have tuned it for UK roads, because we have the worst roads in the world pretty much. But actually, all I would say is it can feel a bit fidgety, and it kind of just sort of rides over the bumps a little bit rather than almost driving through them. So at times, it's weird, at times it feels quite smooth. One of the problems they seem to have here in Portugal though is there's lots of big trees near the roads, and the roots grow underneath the trees, and there's lots of really nasty bumps hidden in the tarmac. So, you know, that's probably a little bit, but as we go over here, it's not actually too bad. So, you know, range, I've got, what have I got, 76% of the battery, and I've got 347 kilometers showing, which isn't too bad, I guess. Okay, time for sport. Ooh, feels sporty straight away. Now, one of the surprising things about the Kia EV9, it's a big old car, but it doesn't half drive well, and it's actually pretty quick. So what is the EV3 like? Now, it doesn't have the kind of performance that many people need. The problem with EVs is we're all so desperate to have billions of horsepower and 0 to 60 in 1 second. You kind of forget that actually most people don't drive like that at all. What a beautiful road this is. So for me, as long as it's got a decent amount of performance, and that's a really nice amount of pull away, it's only front wheel drive. I mentioned already there's quite a bit of weight, so you know, when you tip it into corners, just in terms of body roll and so on, it's actually not too bad, and it feels really nice and responsive. Let me just play with the regenerative braking. So I'm currently in level 2 out of 3. When I'm lifting off, it's slowing the car down a little bit. It's more like maybe for just a little bit of a speed check going into a gentle corner. If I just put it on the maximum level 3 setting, that's much more aggressive. Just almost, I didn't use the brakes to slow down for that corner at all. Do you know what? it's got really nice road manners. When you do use the foot brake, there's plenty of stopping power there, feels quite nice. At the end of the day, this is not a sports car. It's not a sports SUV. It's a family electric car, and it's been tuned to give as much range as possible. It outperforms all of its competitors in terms of range. But you still want to be able to have a bit of fun. You still want to be able to push on if need be. And from a performance point of view, it's not disappointing at all. Now, there's a lot of standing water on the road. I feel quite confident. I'm not feeling a huge amount of slip or understeer or aquaplaning. I guess the weight helps to kind of push the car into the tarmac. Just going to be careful here. Visibility is not great. It's like driving through a cloud, basically. In fact, I think we literally are driving through a cloud. I'm really pleased. I think sometimes, you know, when you look forward to doing something, for me it's always looking forward to driving a car. I go and see cars in a studio in a static environment, and it's always a case of I just can't wait to drive them, to see what they're like, to see if the engineers have been having us on or if they're telling us the truth. And I didn't expect this car to drive nearly as sportily and as well as it does. It's a lovely bit of road, this, to kind of chuck it around. Shame the weather is so poor and I'm so limited on cameras. I don't really want to put cameras on the outside because it's so wet. You wouldn't be able to see anything after about 30 seconds. But yeah, I like that. That's very good. Very, very impressed. So is there anything I'm not that keen on? Well, I mentioned the gear selector. I kind of understand why it's there. I'm just not a fan. I'd probably get used to it. This slide out table, again, it's a quirky idea. I get the kind of trying for the car to be like almost like a lounge feel, but it's something I know I'd probably never ever use. External styling I really like. I think it's very color dependent. I'm not a massive fan of this aventurine green pistachio, whichever one you want to use. I think a darker grey or a blue would look really cool, and I'm not a fan of the wheels. I kind of, in the studio, I thought, yeah, maybe, and they go really well with the car's design, and I'm not sure what design I'd want other than those. I just think they're a little bit jarring. And then we've got a sunroof in this car, but it's only an old style sunroof. It's not a real panoramic roof. I'd love more of the roof to be glass, and I'm thinking that's probably because of the design, the teardrop design of the roof, the sloping roof. But I think that would look so much nicer and be so much lighter in here with a bigger panoramic roof. But in terms of how the car drives and how it feels, I like it a lot. There's a lot of tech on here I would want to play with and spend time with. And the biggest thing I want to do is really put the car through its range paces. You know, for quoting the range we've got, that's a big number to throw around. 600 kilometers, that's, you know, 400 miles pretty much. Now that is WLTP, so in the real world it's bound to be less than that, but I've no shakes. I'm sure you could do in excess of 300 miles in this car. Not entirely sure exactly what the maximum charging kilowattage is in terms of speed, but to go from 10 to 80% in half an hour, let's face it, most of the time that's all you need really. Pop in, grab a coffee. But this weather is just shocking. But I do like the look of the car from the outside. I think it's quirky and edgy. And I think with the technology and the things that we've mentioned and the price point, when you compare it to the competition, it's a really competitive, very interesting, oh my days, the world's ending, people. Oh, look at this weather. I'm gonna head back to the hotel now. But anyway, while this gets really, really bad, please put in the comments below what you think of the new Kia EV3. Is it a car that you would consider having as your only car? Would you be brave enough to have an EV as your only car? But if you enjoyed that one, please give me a thumbs up, especially for battling through this terrible weather. This is the worst weather I've ever had on a media drive, ever. Yeah, but if you enjoy that, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. I've got lots and lots of cool stuff happening, but the more subscribers I have and the more of you lovely people watch my videos, the more of these events I'll be invited to and the more new cars I can share with you. I know this is electric, that's not for some of you, but hang around. I do petrol cars and diesel cars and hybrid cars and electric cars. It just so happens that lots of cars that come to the market at the moment are all EV, and I have to say Kia for me are leading the way. I haven't mentioned the 7-year 100,000 mile warranty. If you're, you know, how much confidence can you have in a car and to have that kind of warranty? Anyway, I'm going to enjoy this last bit of road. Chuck it into some nice bends with loads of standing water, poor visibility. I mean, you know, what could possibly go wrong? There's not a big cliff down there or anything, or the ocean. Anyway, you take care, guys. Drive safe. Oh, where's the road gone? This is a nightmare.